Peace beyond answers, a Buddha reflection. I used to believe that peace would come once I understood everything. Each answer gave a brief sense of relief, but it never lasted. Another question would always follow. Then I began to notice something subtle. It was not the lack of answers that disturbed me, but the need for them. And in the moments when I stopped asking, even briefly, there was a quiet ease that did not depend on understanding. This is where the reflection begins. The question that never ends. There is a moment, perhaps you know it well, when an answer finally arrives. A conversation resolves, a decision is made, a fear is explained. For a breath or two, the body softens, the shoulders drop, the mind says, "Now I understand." And yet, not long after, another question rises, something new to solve, something else to clarify. I have noticed this in myself, and you may notice it too. Relief comes, but it does not stay. The Buddha saw this pattern clearly. He did not begin by asking how to answer every question. He began by observing the restlessness underneath them. That subtle leaning forward of the mind, always reaching for the next certainty. In that reaching, there is tension, and in that tension, there is the quiet beginning of suffering. Tonight we look gently at this habit. Not to silence the mind by force, not to reject questions, but to see what happens when the demand for answers softens. There is a different kind of peace waiting there. The leaning mind. You can feel it in the body, a small pressure behind the eyes, a tightening in the jaw, a sense that something is unfinished. Life presents a moment that is unclear, and almost instantly the mind leans forward. It wants to name it, define it, secure it. The Buddha observed this leaning as grasping. Not only grasping for possessions or praise, but grasping for mental certainty. The present moment becomes a problem to solve rather than a reality to experience. Instead of feeling sadness directly, you ask why it is there. Instead of resting in uncertainty, you search for structure. At first, this seems intelligent. Understanding has helped you survive. But there is a turning point where curiosity hardens into control. The living moment, which moves like water, is frozen into explanation. And the more tightly you hold it, the more it slips through your hands. When curiosity turns to control, clinging brings unease. Release brings clarity. Curiosity in its natural form is gentle. It stays close to experience and listens. But when it becomes urgent, it changes tone. It says, "Tell me now." It does not trust the unfolding of life. The Buddha pointed not to the danger of questions, but to the suffering hidden in insistence. When you demand clarity, the breath grows shallow. The body braces as if something is wrong. Life feels as though it must justify itself. Imagine standing by a river and trying to stop its flow so you can understand each current. The very act of stopping it destroys what you hope to see. In the same way, forcing explanation interrupts the natural movement of experience. What was once fluid becomes tense, and the tension is felt as confusion, not clarity. The quiet violence of forcing. This insistence is not loud. It feels responsible, even mature. You tell yourself you just want to understand your feelings, your relationships, your path. Yet beneath that intention is a subtle pressure. The Buddha saw that suffering begins the moment we argue with what is here. Not outwardly, but inwardly. The mind says, this should make sense. This should be clear. When it is not, irritation appears. This is a quiet form of violence, not physical harm, but inner resistance. The moment is no longer allowed to be incomplete. It must pass a test. And in that testing, you separate yourself from life. You stand over it, analyzing, rather than within it, living. The fear beneath the question. If you look carefully, you may sense fear beneath the need for answers. Not dramatic fear, but a soft discomfort with uncertainty. The mind prefers solid ground. It wants to know what comes next. The Buddha described life as impermanent, always moving. To demand certainty from something fluid is to fight its nature. When you try to freeze water into stability, it resists. That resistance is felt as tension in your own body. Uncertainty is not the enemy. It is simply the way things are. When you allow it, the nervous system begins to relax. The moment no longer needs to explain itself before you can breathe. The relief that fades. What arises passes. What is grasped binds. Notice how answers bring relief only for a moment. The mind solves one puzzle and immediately searches for the next. This is not failure. It is the nature of a mind trained to seek completion in thought. The Buddha did not promise endless satisfying answers. He pointed to the restless movement itself. Each explanation gives temporary comfort because it quiets the mind's urgency. But the habit of urgency remains, so the cycle continues. It is like scratching an itch that keeps returning. The scratching feels good briefly, yet it does not address the deeper irritation. Only when the hand becomes still does the skin begin to settle. Peace before explanation. There are small moments in your day when no question is active. You are drinking water. You are listening to rain. You are walking without planning the next step. In these moments, nothing is solved, yet nothing is missing. The Buddha saw that peace is not created by understanding. It is revealed when grasping pauses. Peace exists before the question forms. It is covered over by the demand for meaning. The mind quickly interrupts this simplicity. It asks how to keep it. It asks what it means. And in that movement, the quiet ease fades from awareness. But it has not disappeared. Attention has simply shifted. The story of me. When explanations fall away, something deeper feels exposed. Without reasons, without narrative, who are you in this moment? The ego depends on continuity. It organizes experience into a story that feels stable. The Buddha observed that what we call self is a collection of shifting processes. Sensations, thoughts, emotions, all changing, yet the mind weaves them into a character. Explanations protect that character. They say, this is why I am this way. When answers are not available, identity feels unstable. The mind reacts by searching harder. Not for truth, but for reassurance that the story still holds. When identity softens. In seeing there is only seeing. No owner is found. As you begin to rest without demanding explanation, identity grows lighter. You are no longer required to define each experience. Sadness can be present without becoming a statement about who you are. Confusion can arise without threatening your worth. The Buddha did not ask you to destroy identity. He invited you to observe its fluid nature. When you see that the story shifts from moment to moment, you stop defending it so fiercely. This softening brings unexpected relief. There is less pressure to maintain consistency. Life is allowed to change you. Listening without interpretation. The habit of explanation does not only shape how you relate to yourself. It shapes how you relate to others. When someone speaks, the mind prepares its interpretation before they have finished. Through the Buddha's way of seeing, listening becomes presence rather than analysis. You notice the urge to categorize, to conclude, and you let it pass. In that openness, connection deepens. Without rushing to explain, you meet the living person rather than your idea of them. The conversation feels less strategic and more human. And in that simplicity, there is quiet ease. Silence as intelligence. Silence can feel uncomfortable at first. Without commentary, there is no familiar anchor. Yet when you remain, something steady reveals itself. The Buddha trusted direct awareness more than conceptual thought. In silence, experience is known without being translated. The body breathes. Sounds arise and fade. Sensations move. Nothing needs explanation to exist. This silence is not empty. It is alive. It holds experience gently, without argument. And within it, a deeper intelligence operates, one that guides action without forcing conclusions. The middle way of questions. Not too tight, not too loose. Walk gently between. Questions are not the problem. The Buddha did not reject inquiry. He rejected clinging. There is a middle way between suppressing thought and obeying every demand for certainty. You can ask when asking is useful. You can reflect when reflection brings clarity. But you also learn to sense when questioning is driven by tension. In those moments, you step back. You let the mind rest. This balance feels mature. It is neither passive nor obsessive. It is aligned. Allowing the moment to be. As the demand for answers loosens, the present moment feels less like a test and more like a landscape. Feelings are allowed to move without being interrogated. Sadness becomes a wave that rises and falls. Joy becomes light passing through leaves. The Buddha's insight into impermanence becomes visible in your own experience. Everything changes on its own. You begin to trust this movement. Not because you understand it fully, but because you see that it does not require your control to unfold. The end of arguing. There is a subtle exhaustion in constantly needing life to make sense. When that argument ends, energy returns. The body relaxes. The breath deepens. The Buddha described freedom not as acquiring something new, but as releasing what binds. When the demand for explanation falls away, what remains is simple presence. Challenges still arise. Pain still visits. But there is less inner commentary saying this should not be happening. Experience moves more cleanly. Peace is not postponed until understanding arrives. It is recognized here. The peace that was always here. Freedom is found in seeing clearly, not in controlling what is seen. You may notice now that peace does not come from answers. It appears when the demand for them relaxes. The mind can ask, but it does not have to insist. The moment does not need to explain itself. Life is complete before meaning. When you stop pressing it for clarity, something loosens. The quiet gap after a question becomes spacious rather than threatening. In that space, you are not incomplete. You are simply here, breathing, aware. Part of a movement larger than thought, and this is enough. This is Buddha Reflections, where philosophy, insight, and lived experience meet to explore mind, impermanence, and release. Thanks for your time. It's been a delight. What should we explore next? Comment, share, and save your insight. Subscribe to Orbital Dharma and keep your thoughts bright.